That's Mary Marst, isn't it?
Her reputation preceded her, didn't it?
Well, it isn't every day a spoiled heiress becomes the acting CEO of an international hotel conglomerate.
That's true. The Marst Corporation. Mary was certainly Daddy's little girl. Well, this family has seen its share of tragedy recently. What is it, 2 years ago, Frank Marst and his wife Ellen died in a skiing accident over in Europe? Then Frank's will hands over the family business to Mary, only to have her nearly die in a car accident. She suffered second and third degree burns all over her body. I don't think she was expected to live, and that was over a year ago.
Well, you gotta hand it to her. She always defied expectations. She was pretty tough.
So tough, maybe someone just got tired of waiting. Mary's hospice nurse and her stepsister Jane Barrett found her like this. I'll let you guys go to work. If you need anything, you know where to find me.
Okay, partner. Ready when you are. Shoe impressions? Left in mud. The mud's still moist. Fresh. These muddy footprints have a very distinct tread. Have you ever seen one of these before? It's a device used with an IV to monitor a patient's dosage of medication. So it looks as though if Mary were experiencing some pain, she could just push this little button here, and the regulator would release a dose of morphine into her IV. You see this? There's a serial number right along the broken seam here. So if we put these pieces back together at the lab, we should be able to read it. Bottle of morphine. So there has to be a switch inside that regulator unit which prevents a patient from overdosing. Now that's an excellent print. We should compare these footprints to the ones we pulled from the next room. Look like anyone you know? Maybe not. This bust is of the late Frank Marst, Mary's father. Looks like it's made of solid bronze. That's good. We'll be able to compare those marks back at the lab. Not bad for a preliminary assessment. What's next? Miss Barrett, we're with the Las Vegas Crime Lab. I know you're upset, but we'd like to ask you a few questions if you don't mind.
Of course, officers. Whatever I can do to help. That's correct. Mary's nurse and I discovered the body this morning. 7:30 this morning? Maybe 7:45? I'm not exactly certain. Yes, she was lying almost exactly like this, but the nurse and my brother John did try resuscitating her, so the body may have been jostled a bit. I made sure none of us moved anything else, because I understand the importance of not disturbing a crime scene. Her morphine regulator was smashed. Mary couldn't do that. Poor thing could only move 2 fingers on her left hand. God bless her. I pray she's in a better place now. You'd think anyone living like this would want to die. Not Mary. She was a fighter, and she was a real inspiration to me. When I moved away from here, I thought I'd never come back. But after Mary's accident, I started flying in from LA every Sunday. I swear to you, as God is my witness, Mary wanted to live. Yes, I live in Los Angeles. I work for a public relations firm, but like I said, I fly out to visit Mary every Sunday. Yes, that's right. I'm sure you've heard of my stepfather, the self-proclaimed hotel tycoon. The bust is almost as imposing and impressive as the man himself. He and my mother died less than a year after it was commissioned. They were skiing in the Swiss Alps. I can tell you, everyone was shocked when the living will entrusted Mary to step in as the acting CEO of Marst Hotel and Entertainment. Well, needless to say, no one thought a party girl could take over the reins of a multinational travel and leisure conglomerate, including me. But I have to admit, we were all wrong. Tragically, the very same night she announced her retirement and appointed her successor, she crashed her car. Yes, it is. She was so badly burned, the doctors told us she wouldn't live through the night. I will never forget the look on my brother's face when he heard the doctor say that. It's all impossibly difficult to describe to you. I mean, first our parents, and then Mary? It was almost too much to bear, but the way she fought, she was stronger than anyone could have guessed. She wanted to live. Mary's nurse let me in, and it was just like my normal Sunday visit. I wanted to tell Mary about my promotion. And then, as soon as I saw her, I knew something was wrong. I could tell by the paleness of her skin. I think I screamed, and the nurse screamed, and that's when John ran in and we tried to revive her. This is the family's chalet. When we all decided to bring Mary back here to spend her final days in peace, my brother John decided to move in too, so he could be with her and help take care of her. He and Mary were very close, much closer than he and I. No, we're not particularly close. Well, let's just say we have very different views about money, very different values about it. Growing up as an only child, Mary had always wanted a little brother, and John was more than happy to be spoiled by her. I have no idea. He ran out of here, and I haven't seen him since.
Thank you for your time, Miss Barrett. We'd like it if you could remain here in Las Vegas until we have a better idea of what happened to your stepsister, okay?
All right, officers. Whatever you think is best.
Excuse us, miss. We're with the Las Vegas Crime Lab. We'd like to ask you a few questions, if you don't mind. Starting with your name, please.
I'm Pauline Liu. I'm Mary's hospice nurse, but I suppose you might have been able to guess that from the uniform. That is, or was, the unit which regulated Mary's morphine dosage. The mobility in the 2 fingers on her left hand allowed her to press the button on the regulator. By breaking the regulator, there'd be no control over how much morphine Mary was receiving. There'd be no way to monitor it. If Mary pushed the button too often, then a small safety latch inside the regulator would engage. The latch blocks any further signals into the mechanism dispensing the morphine. It's what prevents an overdose. Yes, and Miss Barrett, that's Mary's stepsister. She and I found Mary. Like this. About 7:45, I think. Miss Barrett visits us every Sunday and she usually arrives by 10 o'clock, but today she was early. She rang the bell about 7:30. Miss Barrett and I were together when we came into the room and found Mary just like this. I was just devastated. No, it's just not physically possible. Mary was burned over 75% of her body, and we're talking about burns which were 2nd and 3rd degree. The scar tissue is so extensive, her mobility had been limited to 2 fingers on her left hand. It's hard for me to say this, but I do believe Mary wanted to die. It's a miracle she survived the car accident, but the quality of her life from that moment on was extremely poor. It's difficult to imagine just how much physical pain she was in on a daily basis. We did as much as we could to ease that pain, but I know she's in a much better place now.
Could she talk at all?
No, the damage to her vocal cords was too severe. And she couldn't move enough to sign either. Miss Barrett once purchased a computer for Mary so she could literally talk through it. But even though you could operate the voice software with the touch of a button, Mary showed no interest in it. Are you familiar with the Nightingale Pledge? It's an oath nurses take. Like the Hippocratic Oath. Part of it goes, I will abstain from whatever is deleterious and mischievous and will not take or knowingly administer any harmful drug. So in answer to your question, no, I did not assist Mary in ending her life. I have a small room at the house. Family prefers I refer to it as the chalet. Anyway, when the family hired me, it was with the understanding that Mary required 24-hour care. I can't remember Mary ever having a call button, actually. I used to just check in on her 4 or 5 times a night. But I stopped doing that a few months ago when the doctor was able to adjust the regulator to administer a dosage which allowed her to sleep peacefully through the night. I should have never have stopped checking in on her. Maybe I could have saved her. No, Mr. Barrett, I mean John, Mary's brother, well, stepbrother, actually. I'm sorry, it's a little confusing. He lives in the chalet. He told me he moved in right after they decided to check Mary out of the hospital. She hadn't been expected to live very long, and they thought it would be nice for her to live out the rest of her days looking out over the waters of Lake Merritt. He spent a lot of time with her every day, talking to her, reading to her. They were very close. When we couldn't revive Mary, Mr. Barrett got very upset and left the house. I don't know. I took care of Mary, but I was not particularly close to the family. I tried to be as inconspicuous in their lives as possible. Yes, of course.
I'll call Robbins, tell him to send somebody down here to pick up the body. And I'll make sure the officers hold the scene for us, just in case we need to come back here. All right, now we should be able to read the serial number. I'd collect those bits of metal, too. They weren't part of the regulator. Same tread, same size. So whoever passed by the bronze bust of Frank Marst also approached Mary Marst. It's a match. That bronze trace we found in the broken regulator pieces came from that bronze bust of Frank Marst. The evidence suggests someone took the bust from the front room and used it to break open the regulator. Then they removed the morphine control inside. Then the murderer pushed the button on the regulator to give Mary an overdose of morphine. If Mary was awake, she would have been forced to lie there and see it all happen, helpless. That's almost 100% bronze. That's the record of Mary Marst's morphine usage. Take a look at the line of continuous usage during the last entry. I'd be surprised if that's not our cause of death right there. So, the print on the bottle matches Jane Barrett. It says here she was arrested 6 months ago as part of a death with dignity demonstration in Carson City.
What evidence do you have? Prints on the bottle of morphine belong to Ms. Barrett? Well, until Doc Robbins gives us the results of the autopsy, we can't even think about a warrant. But maybe Ms. Barrett will come in here voluntarily to answer some more questions. No harm in asking her.
Thank you for coming in voluntarily, Miss Barrett.
Of course, officers. I'm happy to help with your investigation. To be honest with you, I'm uncomfortable with her appearance. She's trashy. She wears that nurse's uniform more like a stripper than a caregiver. However, John seems to think she does a good job, and Mary approved of her. No, of course not. Mary had already passed by the time I got here. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant today. I did change her morphine when it ran out during my visit last week. Euthanasia? Well, it's one of those... In theory, it sounds like something which could be a good thing, but in practice, what scares me is the opportunity for abuse. Kids offing their grandparents in order to inherit the money to buy a new cell phone? No, I'm opposed to it.
Miss Barrett, are you aware that your fingerprints are on record because you were arrested 6 months ago at a death with dignity demonstration in Carson City?
I wish I could chalk that up to youthful indiscretion, but obviously I was old enough to know better. Suffice it to say, my politics 6 months ago had more to do with my personal relationships than my personal beliefs. I don't mean to suggest that there's anything wrong with the death with dignity people. It's just that I wasn't really with them, if you know what I mean. And honestly, having lived with Mary like this for all this time, I can't say I could make a decision like that. Especially because, even though she can't speak, I know Mary wants to live. I know that very much in my heart.
Ms. Barrett, could you tell us your whereabouts for the last 24 hours?
I live in Los Angeles. I come up here to visit with Mary once a week. I flew up here this morning. By that look on your face, I'd imagine you'd also like to know if anyone can verify what I'm saying, but I don't think anyone I know saw me. Oh, wait. Hold on. Actually, I have this excellent home security setup, Superior Security Systems. You see the way it works? You're either in the away setting with the motion detectors on, or the home setting with them off. They gave me an application for my cell phone that tracks when I'm home and when I'm away. I can send what it recorded for the last 24 hours to you, and you'll be able to see I was home, right up until I left for my flight this morning.
Okay. Send us those records, Ms. Barrett. But we'll still have to authenticate them with your security company. I just got the records for Jane Barrett's security system from Superior Security. Looks like they check out. According to the records, Ms. Barrett was at home last night at 11. You know, the Marst family is still a pretty powerful player in this state. And it's pretty much an open secret that John Barrett was set to inherit everything when Mary Marst died. Jane Barrett wasn't even going to get a little something for the effort.
Well, being left out of the will is a possible motive, but what do we think about Jane helping Mary end her own life, trying to give her death with dignity?
Do you know what death with dignity is? It means you don't drool. I think when you have a family with a lot of money to fight over, I don't trust any of them. But if Doc Robbins tells us the time of death clears Jane Barrett, then I'll move on to the next best suspect, family member or not. Vault Insurance Company was only too happy to provide us with their claim file on Mary Marst's accident.
Hey, Robbins here. Sorry if I slowed you down any, but I was finally able to determine your victim's time of death. You're looking at somewhere around 11 p.m. last night. Why don't you meet me in the morgue when you're ready, and we can go over the rest of the autopsy results. Thanks for waiting. Ms. Marst's previous injuries, which resulted in extensive hypertrophic scarring, made my job a lot more challenging than I'd expected. I'm sorry if I've slowed you down any. Just because something walks like a duck and quacks like a duck doesn't mean we shouldn't assume it's a duck. The massive amounts of morphine found in the victim's system would lead one to expect death by overdose-related causes, and I did determine Ms. Marst's cause of death to be asphyxia due to morphine intoxication. Because the extensive scar tissue in Ms. Marst's lungs was hypertrophic, it took a little while for me to distinguish the morphine as the root cause of the asphyxia, as opposed to a more general catastrophic failure of the respiratory system due to her persistent condition.
Is it just me, Doc, or did this autopsy take a little longer than usual?
Well, Nick, it's just been a while since I examined a body with such severely burned tissues that hadn't been a contributing factor to COD. I estimate time of death to be somewhere around 11 p.m. last night. The problem I had with this one is, if you take a good look at the muscular atrophy, it presents like advanced rigor. These pressure ulcers and skin abrasions also led to some initial confusion to the degree of livor mortis. And finally, once I got Ms. Marst's medical records and saw she'd stopped eating solid food about 3 months ago, I knew I couldn't use any partially digested food to help set her time of death.
Man, you weren't kidding when you said this one was challenging.
Yeah, but that's what keeps the spark alive in this job. It's a good question, and I have no answer for you. Now, in a situation like this, where such a high dose of morphine is involved, I look for signs of cadaveric spasm. Because when voluntary muscles are deprived of oxygen due to, say, strenuous activity, these muscles tend to seize up perimortem, and indications of cadaveric spasming, let's say in the hands or arms, would tend to suggest the victim was in the midst of a struggle around the time of death, and I looked for such indications. When I got the full tox report back, it seemed to me that the level of morphine in her system was so toxic, it probably caused her to slip very quickly into an unconscious state just prior to the total collapse of lungs. So, absent any indication of cadaveric spasm, I concluded your victim's voluntary muscles were not engaged in any such strenuous activity perimortem. The more important point here is that whether this was a deliberate act of murder or an assisted suicide, Mary Marst's death was the result of a homicide. No, it would have been impossible. Her medical records indicate Ms. Marst sustained multiple near-fatal injuries in a car crash. Apparently, she actually inhaled burning fuel, which obviously severely and permanently damaged her vocal cords. Sure, I collected them for you, as usual. Anything I can do, feel free to take a closer look at the body yourself. Oh, almost forgot. There's a shard of some kind embedded in the back of her left hand. I left it for you to collect. Scar tissue here is extensive, as well as hypertrophic. That's the shard I told you about.
Looks like an acetone and some hydrogen cyanide combined into fibers of an ethyl methacrylate monomer and bonded with a similar but complex polymer of transparent thermoplastic. It's a tiny piece of a cosmetic fingernail. I wonder, when was the last time Nurse Lou had her nails done?
The Document Analyzer lets you examine documents for hidden content. Select a piece of evidence using the Evidence button to begin.
Okay, so this pretty much backs up what Jane Barrett told us. She was home in Los Angeles last night. Pretty solid alibi. You may have something there. Jane comes to visit every Sunday, and every Sunday Mary's morphine usage becomes erratic. The records from Jane's security system indicate there was one Sunday when she stayed home. Now, don't you think it's odd she didn't happen to mention that one Sunday to us? It's also not reflected in Mary's pattern of morphine usage. It doesn't contradict Jane's alibi, but it's definitely worth keeping in mind.
You've added a piece of evidence to the Document Analyzer. To find any hidden information that might be there, you'll need to adjust each of the 3 sliders. Select and drag the first slider until the hidden information partially appears. Repeat this for each slider until the hidden information is fully revealed. You will receive confirmation when you've found what there is to find.
What do you got in the way of evidence? What if we do this? I'll talk to the nurse. See if she might be willing to come down here voluntarily to answer some questions. Maybe we'll get lucky.
Nurse Lou, we appreciate you coming down here voluntarily to answer some questions.
You're welcome. I don't think there's any more I can tell you, but I'd like to help you if I can. These? Yes, they are. That's odd. Oh, but you know, I did get a nail tip put on my index finger when the real one broke last week. It's been on my hand all week, so I guess I kind of forgot about it. But you can see it's not chipped or anything. I don't know for sure. I do know there's an area down by Lake Merritt where the family keeps their boat, and Mr. Barrett, he likes to go down there when he wants to be by himself. Given what's happened, I wouldn't be surprised if he's there now. Mr. Barrett would tell Mary about the boat in the lake and how it was the only real place in the world he could find any peace. He and Mary spent a lot of time together. He would sit there beside her and carry on a conversation as if she were talking right back to him. I wasn't eavesdropping, I just couldn't help but overhear their talks. Or his talking, that is. Mr. Barrett is my employer. He pays me to provide home care for his sister. Honestly, I can't say I really know Miss Barrett. When she came to visit, she would seem uncomfortable. But seeing someone you love in the condition Miss Marsh was in, well, it's very, very difficult. So I tried not to take anything personally.
Thank you, nurse. We may call you in if more questions come up.
I understand.
That must be our man. Right where Mary's nurse said he'd be. Well, no one will ever accuse you of not being thorough. I'd say you might be overdoing it a little bit, but it never hurts to practice, right? Good idea. We can use the microscope to compare the mold against any prints we find. John Barrett, we're with the Las Vegas Crime Lab.
Okay. Do you think I'm gonna need my lawyer?
We're looking into the death of Mary Marst, and we'd like to ask you some questions.
I didn't do it. What else do you need to know? Sister. Mary was my sister. Even though our mothers were different, that didn't matter. And Mary was the only real member of my family I had left. Now she's gone. What the hell are you trying to insinuate? Mary was a fighter. Most people just lose their will to live. Not Mary. She was an inspiration. You know what? That's really none of your business. My opinion? I think you're wasting your time. And mine. My sister's gone, and your investigation isn't gonna change that. I'm gonna let you in on a little family secret. We have a real problem with authority, unless we're invested in it. So any more questions you have, save them for each one of my lawyers. Yeah, give me a call. We'll grab a drink or something.
The size and the tread patterns match. Our suspect was wearing these shoes. We need to talk to Brass.
Based on what evidence? is good. We can get a warrant to search the kid's room with this. Problem we have now is it's Sunday, which means the judge is indisposed on one of several possible golf courses. I'll have to chase him down to get the warrant to search John Barrett's room. Why don't you head back to the lab? I'll call you when I have it.
Recognize him? This is a statue of St. Ambrose, patron saint of beekeepers. The statue belongs to Beatrice Salazar. At least it belonged to her back in 1982. That dried blood there belonged to her husband, Miami drug lord Humberto Salazar. The theory goes Humberto Salazar fell in love with a beautiful teenage prostitute he plucked off the streets of Mexico City. She got the house, the car, and the drug empire. He got St. Ambrose to the head. At the time, nobody could find any physical evidence to tie Salazar to her husband's murder, but obviously, we've come a long way since 1982. And that's where you guys come in. Salazar's grandstanding when she showed up the other day was just for show. Her DNA has been on file for a while.
What are these white, pasty flecks?
Adhesive from an evidence locker sticker. I just need you guys to pull her DNA off this statue, and if you can, that's the ball game. We've got her for murder.
Nice job. Now let's run the sample.
Wait, what's going on?
I'm not sure. Somehow, proteins got denatured, cooked.
They're useless. Son of a bitch. What the hell happened?
It doesn't make any sense. The concentration of sodium lauryl sulfate is way too high. But I was standing right there beside you. I saw you prepare the sample correctly.
Damn it, I can't believe this. I'm taking this statue back into my custody, and I'm going to make a formal request to the deputy director and to your sheriff that an investigation be immediately conducted into the CSI's possible malfeasance. Mr. Stokes, I would suggest you take this matter into your own hands before it brings down this entire lab. Tell me something. Are you just incompetent, or did you just deliberately destroy potential evidence?
I know this sounds crazy, but I think Agent Huntby set us up. I think he deliberately set us up so that we would consume that potential DNA sample in analysis. And he wanted us to take the fall for it. Catherine, we gotta get our hands back on that statue. We need to analyze whatever traces on it, and we have to figure out what the hell's going on with Huntby.
Huntby just left the building, and he took the statue with him. I'll notify the FBI field office. See if they can help us. I think Nick is right. And I'll do everything in my power to get that statue back here and have you retest it. But until we can get this thing totally resolved, I think it's best for the credibility of the lab if I keep you off any cases pertaining to Beatrice Salazar. I understand you have another case you're handling right now. I recommend the two of you keep working on it. So, walk me through this again.
Okay. We used a moderate concentration of sodium lauryl sulfate to lyse the cell walls.
Okay. Cell walls open up, allowing us to extract the genetic material inside and prepare it for DNA analysis.
Exactly. Except this time, for some reason, there was a much higher concentration of SLS than we normally use. So when the sample was hydrated in preparation for our DNA analysis, the water and the high concentration of SLS produced a chemical reaction that gave off enough heat to raise the temperature of the water way above 80 degrees Celsius.
Which would have denatured the protein and destroyed the viability of the sample. Agent Huntby is claiming you incorrectly prepared the lysing solution by adding too much SLS.
Catherine, with all due respect to Agent Huntby, I was standing right there when it all went down. The solution was prepared correctly. Now, as we were swabbing the sample, I did notice a trace amount of some sort of pasty substance on the back of the statue. So I asked Agent Huntby about it, and he said it was just some glue residue from an identification tag.
You know, you can create a paste with sodium lauryl sulfate, concentrated enough to have that reaction when hydrated.
It's Brass. I finally tracked down the judge and got him to review and sign our search warrant for John Barrett's bedroom. It's a go.
Brass had a hell of a time getting this search warrant. Let's not waste it. Stay sharp. Perks of the job, right? Dirty job, but somebody's got to do it. Hopefully we'll be able to recover some usable DNA. If we're lucky, we'll find out if she had a partner. This guy may be rich, but lucky for us, he obviously doesn't pay for a daily maid service. Look what we have here. Cosmetic fingernail, which looks as though it's fallen off, and taken a bit of the real nail with it. That sample may allow us to positively identify who the nail belongs to. The man likes his shoes. Mud on the shoes looks like it hasn't dried. It's fresh. They're a perfect match.
The results of your search are in the column on the right. Select one to continue.
Well, hello. It's always the naughty nurse, right? Not only does Pauline Lou have a work card because she's been a dancer at various gentlemen's clubs around town, but she also has an arrest for solicitation on her record. Looks like John and Nurse Lou didn't want us to know about their little relationship. Do you want to tell Brass, or should I? Okay, so not only is Nurse Lou a stripper with a rap sheet, she lied to us about the fake fingernail.
What do you got in the way of evidence? Pauline Lou and John Barrett were lovers. Great. So I'd call that motive, wouldn't you? So let me get this straight. John Barrett stands to inherit a fortune. His girlfriend, the nurse, provides him with an alibi, and lucky for her, vice versa. And on top of that, her intimate knowledge of the regulator unit gives the kid a great big opportunity for murder.
Looks like John Barrett doesn't seem too interested in providing an alibi for anyone, including Pauline Lou.
Okay, let's not tip our hand here. If we try and talk to John Barrett first, his lawyers might circle him and the nurse. But if we call the nurse in here first, then maybe she'll be willing to make a deal and give up her boyfriend.
I'm very confused by this situation. I've tried to be very cooperative. Have I done something wrong? Well, like I told you before, I chipped a nail and replaced it with this one I have on. And I've had it on all week. Why are you asking?
Pauline, we found your DNA on a cosmetic fingernail.
That's right. You know what? When I first broke my nail, I put on a different replacement. But I didn't apply it right, so then I put this one on. In fact, I didn't even put this one on. The woman who does my nails did. But I don't see why any of this matters, because that was all like a week ago. Why are you asking me that? I'm a registered nurse, and Mr. Barrett hired me to provide hospice quality care to his sister.
Pauline, I'm going to ask you again. What is your relationship to John Barrett? I think you know why I'm asking. Because according to the semen and vaginal contributions we found on this underwear, you and Mr. Barrett were very intimate. At least on one occasion.
It's true. I love John. We've been together for some time now. I met John not long after his parents passed away. I probably fell in love first. I think he was more interested in being distracted. You see, before I was a nurse, I was a dancer. A stripper, actually. It's not something I'm proud of, but it's not exactly something I'm ashamed of either. It paid my way through nursing school. I'd always dreamed of being a nurse. And it brought me to John. But I never quite had enough confidence, or I don't know. Maybe I just didn't have enough experience to pass my certification tests. John was the only one who ever believed in me. He's the most sensitive, caring man I've ever known.
Pauline, you've been telling us this whole time that you're a registered nurse.
Yeah, well, for all practical purposes, I am. It's just that I don't actually have this certification yet, and I didn't want to get John into trouble for having hired me. Look, I swear to God, that's the only reason I tried to hide our relationship from you. Look, all my life, all I've ever wanted to do is be a nurse and help people. I couldn't bear the thought of being barred from the profession for good because of this.
As Mary's nurse, you definitely had what we like to refer to as opportunity. You following me? Okay, now since you and John had a little thing going on, and he stood to inherit the family fortune if and when Mary died, well, that gives both of you motive. What really complicates things is that you've told us two different stories.
I'll tell you what, Miss Lou. We're all reasonable people. We know you and John are in this thing together. That's why we're prepared to offer you a deal. Testify against Mr. Barrett, and we'll make sure that you do the bare minimum of jail time. What do you say?
No, please, I'm innocent. You've got to talk to John. He'll tell you. We were together all night. I swear to you.
You lied to us, Pauline. Now it's kind of hard just to take you at your word. And since John's not talking, we're really going to need your help to find something to back up your story.
If John knows what's going to happen to me, he'll talk to you. I know he will. He's a very complicated man. Before her accident, Mary gave John a gift. It's a goofy little thing. This little finger puppet. It was like this private joke between the two of them. But then when Mary got hurt, that stupid puppet began to mean the world to John. He would hold it at her bedside and try to make her laugh with it. But last week, the puppet got lost somehow. I'd been cleaning up and I must have misplaced it, but John went ballistic. I mean, you'd have thought I'd run over his dog. Anyway, day before yesterday, I found the damn puppet. I was thrilled. I went down to the lake, down by where they keep the boat, and I was gonna surprise John with it, but before I could say anything, he started screaming at me. And that's when I threw that stupid puppet away. For good. Well, not exactly for good. I tried throwing the damn thing in the lake, but instead I ended up tossing it into the family's boat. Okay, this is the crazy part, and the whole reason I'm telling you this. I think if John gets that puppet back, then he might be able to open up to you guys. He's missing Mary so much. He just needs to have a piece of her back, and then he'll open up and tell you everything you need to know. I'm sure of it.
That's all for now. Thank you. Okay, here's that little puppet Pauline was talking about. It's ridiculous. I mean, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but it's just really hard to believe this would mean so much to Mary's brother. It's like John's come out of hiding.
Oh, God. Where did you get this?
We understand it has a lot of sentimental value for you.
It does. It may seem silly to you, but it means a lot to me. Thanks. This finger puppet, this dumb, ugly little finger puppet, is proof I killed my sister. She gave it to me just before the accident. And then afterwards, I'd put it on her finger, and she'd make me laugh. It disappeared a week ago, right after I made Mary promise me she'd keep living. For me. Because I could tell, in her eyes, she wanted to give up. She was tired. I couldn't let her go. When I thought I'd lost this puppet, it suddenly occurred to me that instead of convincing Mary to stay with me, I'd actually pushed her into leaving. I killed her. Someone else may have helped her, carry it out, but it's really my fault.
John, I don't understand something, and I don't mean to be insensitive, but how would you know what Mary was thinking? She couldn't speak. She could hardly move. How were you communicating with her?
We both knew Morse code. We tap into each other's palms. It's almost like how Helen Keller used to communicate.
Mary knew Morse code.
Yeah. For laughs, she'd tap out the things that bothered her on the regulator button, because she knew it would cut off after a certain point. She complained about blisters and cramps. Jane.
Jane?
Yeah. Mary told me every Sunday at some point she'd get so bored when Jane came over that she'd spell her name out with the regulator button. It's like the finger puppet. Stupid, but funny. I really miss her.
We need to get back to the lab and review those regulator records. I think we may have overlooked our best witness. So here's what's bugging me. Every time Jane comes to visit, Mary all of a sudden has this wildly unpredictable pattern of morphine dosing. And I just couldn't put my finger on what was gnawing at me. What could Mary possibly be thinking? And then it hit me. If you were to take Mary's erratic pattern and filter it through the computer as a Morse code pattern, Did you see Mary's final message right before she died? Jayn. You know, Morse code has been in use for over 160 years. It only ceased to be an international standard for maritime communication in 1999. And for some reason, I remember when the French Navy ceased using Morse code in 97. The final message transmitted was, "Calling all. This is our last cry before our eternal silence." Let's go talk to Brad.
What evidence do you have? I mean, this isn't exactly a smoking gun. Jane Barrett may have had opportunity, but as far as we can tell, she hasn't got a motive. Now, our little John and Nurse Lou, they have motive. I'll see what I can do, but now that John's more willing to cooperate, why don't we talk to him and see if he lets something slip?
Look, officers, this is a really terrible time for me right now. I'm sorry for lashing out at you. I realize you're just doing your job. I lied to you about one thing. If someone did this to Mary, I want to know who. I'll help you. In any way I can. Ask me whatever questions you need. I could talk about Mary all day if you wanted me to. That Pauline wasn't actually a registered nurse? Yeah, Mary knew. She didn't have a problem with it. She liked Pauline a lot. She also knew how I felt about her. I think Mary probably thought I could do better than an ex-stripper, but she was happy that I was happy. Everyone knew we were a couple, including Jane. I love Pauline, and I know she would never do anything to hurt Mary. And even if Mary had wanted Pauline to help end her life, even if Pauline had found some way to communicate with Mary about that, she would have come to me first. Whatever you think you have on Pauline, I'm telling you, you're wrong. Pauline doesn't know Morse code. How could Mary have asked her? I know you probably think I'm blinded by love or something, but Pauline couldn't have been the one who ended Mary's life. Jane? My sister and I don't exactly get along anymore, but between the two of us, I'm the one capable of murder, not her. Jane didn't like Mary. She didn't trust her. But then after the accident, Jane tried really hard to make things right between them. No, Pauline and I were there all day. We never saw her.
Do you lock the front door?
No, we don't. I guess it's possible Jane could have come in without us seeing her. Anything's possible, right?
Tiny piece of a cosmetic fingernail. It's petroleum oil with a very low ash content. Looks like the type of two-stroke oil you'd use in jet skis. Good job, partner. You proved that pool of motor oil is absolutely a pool of motor oil. The tread of this shoe is the same size and pattern as the shoe impression we collected from the crime scene. I gotta say, it doesn't look so good for John. So that piece of cosmetic fingernail that we found in the skin of Mary's hand belongs to her nurse. She lied to us. I wish I could say I was surprised.
Pauline and I were home all night. We got back around 10, and then we basically crashed in our room till morning. It's not really much of an alibi, right? Nobody saw us, nobody called us, but it's the truth. I understand you have to ask me that question, but it still hurts. And the answer is still, no, I did not kill Mary.
You see, John, the problem is, absent you having an alibi we can confirm, the evidence we have right now suggests that you had both opportunity and motive in your sister's death.
What evidence?
Well, for one thing, we found a shoe impression beside your sister's bed. It was left in fresh mud. We were able to match that impression to the shoes we found in your bedroom, the ones which still had caked mud on them.
Wait a minute. Think about it. If I was really gonna kill Mary, why the hell would I track mud all over the house and leave my shoe print where you guys can find it and match it right back to me?
You ever hear the expression consciousness of guilt? It means deep down, you might have subconsciously felt guilty for doing what you did.
I didn't do what you think I did. The thing is, I have another pair of shoes just like those. I keep them on the boat. Somebody else could have used them. Somebody who wanted to make it look like I did it. Now, the weird thing is, I keep those shoes in a locked cabinet. But here's the key. Go check it out.
Same size and brand of shoe with mud on them, right where John told us they'd be. Okay, now the trick is to distinguish one pair of muddy shoes from the other. Good catch. That's a very fine strand of hair. The shoe impressions we collected at the crime scene, match the treads of the shoes we recovered from the boat. These are the shoes the killer wore. Appearances can be so deceiving, can't they? That's Jane Barrett's hair. You know what? That crime scene was staged. We need to talk to Brass.
Based on what evidence? The DNA evidence puts Jane Barrett right at the crime scene. I'll get your warrant.
I don't understand. Why am I being brought in like this? I told you before I was at home in Los Angeles.
Miss Barrett, we found your DNA at a location which ties you to Mary's murder.
That's not possible. I gave you my home security systems. I wasn't even in Las Vegas. I was home. This has to be some kind of mistake. Didn't you check with the security company?
That's exactly what we did, Miss Barrett.
You, and everyone we talked to, mentioned how you would always pay Mary a visit every Sunday. But when we reviewed your home security records, we noticed one Sunday when your system listed you as home all day.
I have an explanation. That is,
May we see your phone, Miss Barrett?
I'm going to get a search warrant for your home in Los Angeles, Miss Barrett. I'm going to have LAPD turn over the place and tell me exactly what they find.
May I save you the trouble, Captain? You won't find anything there. You have no case. Just because I wasn't home doesn't mean I murdered my stepsister. That's actually quite a remarkable leap of imagination. And I would guess those don't usually play very well in front of a jury.
Just heard back from the LAPD. They searched Jane Barrett's Lost Hills residence from top to bottom. Found nothing. Look, maybe Jane didn't want to risk traveling around with incriminating evidence on her, so she stashed it around here somewhere. All I'm saying is, it's worth looking into.
The smudge wasn't on her phone earlier. It's not sticky, it's viscous, like oil. Petroleum oil with a very low ash content. Looks like the type of two-stroke oil you'd use in jet skis. The chemical impurities in both oil samples match, which means we can put Jane at the lake very recently, but why would she go down there? Unless maybe she was trying to hide something from us. I think we're going to need something to search below ground as well as above.
Ah, yes, the ultrasound device. It's impressive, but it's also expensive. Let's just be sure we really need it before we start wasting valuable resources. This evidence places Jane Barrett in proximity to that pool of motor oil. Okay. I'll get you that ultrasound device. Let's see if we can find out why she was there.
So this is what Jane was trying to hide. A hammer. She buried the hammer right on top of a wrench, which looks as though it's been down there for a while. Looks like some kind of softer metal got embedded in the pitting on the hammerhead. Jane Barrett's fingerprint is on the hammer used to smash the regulator. I'd really like to hear what Jane Barrett has to say. These particles are bronze, and they're a perfect match to the bronze that the bust is made out of. The bronze particles didn't come off by smashing the regulator. Someone deliberately shaved them off and planted them. So our killer wanted us to make the connection to the bust, and wanted to make sure we found those muddy footprints right by it. And he or she assumed that if we did, our focus would turn to John and Pauline.
You didn't find anything, did you? I tried to save you the trouble. So is that it, officers? You'll never really know, will you?
We found splinters from this hammer and the shavings of the bronze bust you planted in the broken regulator.
Are you sure about that?
Here's your fingerprint. We found it on the hammer you buried by the lake.
The same hammer you used to knock off a piece of that bust. The one you planted with the broken regulator.
I'm just curious, Jane. Why the bust of Mary's father? Did you resent the Marst family that much?
I hated them. Hated them for stealing my family from me. You know, when my parents died in that oh-so-tragic skiing accident, it made me start believing that there was the possibility of justice in this world. Like God had answered my prayers and punished them for abandoning me. But then Mary took over the company. She was just a stupid little party girl, and there was nothing I could do about it. But as soon as Mary resigned, that very night, I was ready. God really does help those who help themselves. Mary survived her accident, which upset me. Why was God punishing me? But I planned to try again, and that's when I bought that application for my phone so I would be able to create an alibi. But you know, I realized I could just watch Mary die, bit by bit. It was then that I completely understood God's plan for me. I wasn't being punished. I was being rewarded. And then one day, I found John standing over Mary, crying and begging her not to die because she was the only family he had left. But I'm his real sister. That very day, I snuck into John's room to find something that would lead you to him and his naughty nurse. I took a chip of her fingernail from the trash in his room. Then yesterday, I used my phone to make it look like I was home. Then I drove to Vegas. It only takes about 4 hours. In the right car, that is. I went down to the family boat, put on my gloves, got John's muddy shoes, and drove to the chalet. I waited for my brother and his whore to go to his room, and then I snuck in. I put on the shoes and took the bronze bust from the front room. As soon as she saw me, Mary started panicking, pushing her regulator button over and over and over. Do you need some help with that, Mary? I cracked open Mary's regulator with the bust, then used the hammer to chip off a bit of it. That part was for you guys to find. Then, and this was the best part, I put the broken regulator in Mary's hands and I forced her to push the button. I looked into her terrified eyes to watch the morphine melt her soul away. And then, she almost wrecked it. She looked at me, and she smiled at me. She was trying to trick me, make me think she was glad to die. Like this was what she'd wanted all along, as if God was freeing her, not me. After she was dead, I planted that tiny bit of the fake fingernail on her hand. I replaced the bust, returned the shoes to the boat, and buried the hammer. Then I drove home. I got back just in time to catch my flight.
You might be right, Jane. Mary may have been happy to finally be released of her burden. Or maybe she was smiling because she'd been able to spell out most of your name on her regulator right before she passed. I think she was smiling because she knew you weren't going to get away with murder.
Well, we'll never know for sure now, will we?
I do know one thing for sure, Miss Barrett. You may have been neglected by your family, but we're going to be paying a lot of attention to you now, probably for the next 25 years to life.
Very good work, you two. A confession is always a nice bonus in a case like this one.
Technically, 2 confessions. One for last night's murder, and another for last year's attempted murder.
You keeping score, Nikki?
I just think my partner here deserves full credit for chalking up 2 scores. And I think it should go a long way towards breaking up that cloud hanging over the team because of Huntby.
You let me worry about Huntby.
I'm telling you, Catherine, he's dirty.
Good night, Nikki.